Welcome to the Sound of Ideas from IdeaStream Public Media. I'm Stephanie Haney. Thank you for being with us. High school sports can be an incredibly formative time for students, building teamwork, bonding, and leadership skills. But what happens when camaraderie turns into hazing? Hazing is when someone is expected or forced to do something that hurts or humiliates them in exchange for acceptance into a group. Today, we're looking at the legal aspects of this issue, including who's responsible when hazing happens, and when is a school required to step in. This is in our Law of the Land series, and this is in light of 4 separate lawsuits that were recently filed against Ursuline High School, a Catholic school in Youngstown, all of which accuse the school of looking the other way. In 3 instances, when members of its football program allegedly assaulted and harassed each other and other students, and in 1 instance involving an alleged pre-planned attack on a student on school grounds. After the lawsuits came out, Ursuline High School made staff and oversight changes, which we'll discuss, and also suspended the football season for most of its year, acknowledging that students violated their code of conduct and did things that they called morally wrong. We're also talking about how hazing culture occurs more broadly, how to respond when accusations are made, and how to keep students safe from attacks in the first place. Joining me today on this topic of conversation, we have Subodh Chandra, the attorney who filed each of the 4 recent lawsuits against Ursuline High School. Subodh, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having us on, Stephanie. Appreciate it.
Now, we did invite leaders from Ursuline High School to join us, but they declined and instead shared a statement made jointly with the Catholic Diocese of Youngstown, which we will read shortly. On the phone, we have Jeffrey Herman, a nationally recognized attorney and victims advocate who is from Youngstown. Jeff, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Also on the phone, we have Zach Slates, who's the head football coach at Minerva High School. That's about an hour's drive southwest of Youngstown in Stark County. Zach, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Now, if you'd like to join the conversation, you can give us a call. That number is 866-578-0903. You can also send us an email at soi@ideastream.org, or you can send us a message on Instagram at The Sound of Ideas. Subodh, 3 of the 4 lawsuits deal directly with the football team at Ursuline High School, and one of those deals directly with hazing. That was the first lawsuit filed, so tell us about that.
So filed on September 2nd of this year, 2025, the first lawsuit alleges that there was an extensive hazing culture at Ursuline High School in its football program, of which the suit alleges the coaches were fully aware, and that hazing included sexual abuse. The first alleged victim named in that first lawsuit alleged that he had been subjected in a June 2025 football camp trip through 3 states, that he had been subjected to sexual abuse on that trip. And also the suit further alleges the coaches were aware of this kind of activity, tolerated it, and that it was a part of the culture of the program. The suit was then later amended after people became aware of it and other alleged victims came forward to include a second victim who alleges that in a 2022 trip, the same kind of thing happened to him. And so, the suits are alleging a broad pattern of abuse that was tolerated and understood by coaches and administrators, and it further alleges that when this was brought by the mother of the first victim to the attention of the administration, that the administration didn't take the appropriate steps under the circumstances, didn't complete an actual thorough investigation of what occurred, didn't hold students accountable in any meaningful way, and also did not appropriately report all of the facts to the authorities as required when there's that kind of harm.
Okay, now in answer to this lawsuit, the Diocese of Youngstown, Ursuline High School, and its principal, assistant principal, and athletic director said many things. In the answer, one of those things that they said was the alleged harassment described in the complaint was not sufficiently severe, pervasive, or objectively offensive to deprive the plaintiffs of access to educational opportunities or benefits. Another thing that they said was that there had been a waiver of any claims that could arise from this camp. They attached a waiver to the answer to the lawsuit. In that waiver, It had language stating that the parents had waived any possible foreseen or unforeseen claims that might arise from their ninth grader attending this football camp. So that is the response that we have from the Catholic Diocese of Youngstown and also Ursuline High School related to this. We'll read their statement here in just a bit on a broader statement after the fourth lawsuit was filed. Now, Jeff, I'll ask you, when a victim reports this kind of behavior, what's the way that you would hope to see a school respond?
Well, we hope that they would come forward and accept responsibility. What's alleged here in these complaints is really nothing new in terms of this fraternity-style hazing that I've seen going on for decades and decades. What's different now is that in these kinds of cases, we often see a digital fingerprint, meaning there's video evidence. Kids have these cell phones, or they'll post it on social media. But the response, we would hope, would be immediate removal of those alleged to have participated for a full investigation. Not these kind of defenses where we're like, well, you waived your rights, we really haven't done anything wrong. That's just the same thing we've heard for decades and decades. And so this stuff happens all the time in colleges, but in colleges we have these fraternities run by students. When it's in a high school, you have adults who are supposed to be in charge and are supposed to be responsible for the kids.
Sabot, I'll ask you, he mentioned a digital footprint there. Is there any digital footprint in this case?
Yes, as the amended complaint in the hazing lawsuit lists in detail, there's abundant video evidence. Now, we didn't submit it with the court record because it amounts to child pornography, and so we just can't make that publicly available. It's extremely sensitive, and in federal court there are procedures for handling such materials, say, for example, in child pornography prosecutions. And so, yes, we describe in detail, video by video, the video evidence we have, including the sexualized acts against the first client, and video after video after video going back years of similar incidents involving other children. So that digital footprint, so to speak, is there. It exists. We have it in our possession, custody, and control. It has been provided to Ursuline's counsel. And I think I'd be remiss if I didn't at this point, because it's the first time I'm hearing that particular defense articulated by Ursuline. I think it's very important that I respond to it, to both points. On the first point, trying to legalistically say this wasn't severe or pervasive, I don't know that any parent or any victim who involuntarily had somebody else's erect penis ground into them, even through clothes, would not describe that as severe. And I don't see how they would describe it as not pervasive when there's video after video after video in the possession of Ursuline High School administrators and their counsel. That statement is simply outrageous, is overly legalistic, and we believe isn't going to be borne out by the facts, but the details of the complaint, people can judge for themselves the descriptions of the video content that we have. The second point, I believe, I'm trying to remember what the second point was.
The waiver?
Yes, the point about the waiver. In Ohio, it's very clear, and the Supreme Court of Ohio has ruled, you cannot sign a negligence waiver as a parent or otherwise for intentional acts, for criminal acts. So in other words, you can't just sign something and now all of a sudden the school can do whatever it wants and all of a sudden players can do whatever they want and there's no liability associated with that. So that again is a hyper legalistic approach to a problem that unfortunately is not constructive. And as Mr. Herman was saying, one would hope that there'd be a more constructive approach by Ursuline and the diocese in particular. It's the bishop who ultimately is responsible for all of this because he literally signs the contracts of every single one of those administrators.
We'll get into that responsibility question in just a bit here. Zach, I'd like to bring you into the conversation. In high school athletics and in any group activity, really, there can be a certain degree of healthy competition and teasing in these relationships. What do you look out for to stop something from going too far in an athletics environment?
Yeah, I mean, I run a weight room class here at Minerva, and one of the things we do is we go through the NFHS Learn courses, and the first one we did was on bullying and hazing, and just getting that information out to the kids, like, hey, this is not just playing around, this is more than that, and there's lines you can't cross and things you cannot do. So just trying to get ahead of it by teaching the kids that, hey, these things are not wrong. These things are not okay. They're wrong to do. You can't do it. And especially today, in today's age with the social media and camera phones and all those things, you have to really keep an eye on it as a coach.
Stephanie, I just want to ask a follow-up question to Coach Slates, which is, as part of that training, as part of instructing kids and inculcating them on proper behavior, are they also told, look, under Ohio law, these are criminal acts. Hazing is a criminal act. Is that part of the instruction?
Yeah, I mean they go through and it talks to them about like what's not allowed, like what you like. There are specific lines that you cannot cross. We just did one last week on implicit bias, so like targeting specific groups and things like that. So we go through a lot of the different things that might arise through being a high school athlete, and what you have to not do, like what's not acceptable.
Taking a proactive approach there. Subodh, I'll ask you, there's been one settlement. There are many defendants in this first hazing lawsuit. There's been one settlement from the hazing lawsuit. Any criminal charges coming that you're aware of?
So our clients, as victims across all four of these cases that have been filed, have been working cooperatively with law enforcement that has had many, many questions for them. And we are aware that there is a comprehensive federal, state, and local law enforcement investigation underway. We as counsel are persuaded from our interaction with the authorities. Of course, I can't speak for them, but we are confident that they are doing a thorough top-to-bottom review here, and that it takes time. I know there's been some frustration in the community at how long it's been, especially since these allegations first came to light in June of 2025. But imagine the digital footprint. I mean, the vast amount of data, Snapchat data, that investigators would have to go through, just as one example, and the number of witnesses. So we're confident that they're taking a diligent approach to this, and we, at least on behalf of our victims, we hope and expect that there will be criminal charges holding everybody involved accountable.
I'll read a statement now that we did receive from the Catholic Diocese of Youngstown and Ursuline High School. This statement came in after the fourth lawsuit, which we will get to eventually, but I want to read this statement now. Ursuline has stated repeatedly that the alleged conduct of some members of the football team on the 2025 Ursuline football camp trip violated Ursuline's student handbook and code of conduct and were morally wrong. Bishop David Bonner, the diocese, Ursuline, and the Ursuline administration are working together to defend their legal positions. While we continue to honor the legal process and the privacy of all involved, our dedication to healing will continue to guide the response of Ursuline and the Church. The respective positions of the diocese, Ursuline, and Ursuline administration are set forth in greater detail in those legal filings. As such, we have no further comments. In the meantime, Bishop Bonner and Ursuline continue to pray for healing and unity in the spirit of this Advent time of hope and faith. That's the statement that we received last week from Ursuline High School in the Catholic Diocese of Youngstown. There are other lawsuits involved here. So, Subodh, can you talk to us very quickly about the other two lawsuits also involving the Ursuline High School football players?
Yeah, there's actually a total of four now.
Yes.
And so the second lawsuit involved a young woman, a girl, who, as a freshman, alleges that she was attacked by a football player, one of the football players involved in the other suit, and that she was physically attacked, and that she and her mother brought that to the attention of the administration, and that there was no appropriate response, no report to the police, no report to Child Protective Services, despite it being a very serious physical attack in which she experienced serious physical harm, and that there was no recourse, and that she was then further continued to be placed in classes by the administration with that same individual. And over the course of over a couple of years, she was still put at risk and experiencing repeated sexual harassment by this individual, to the point where her mother just took her out of the school and finally placed her in another school. Again, the suit is alleging an inappropriate response by the administration to the situation. The third suit involves a young man who is LGBTQ, who also experienced harassment by football players. And again, his grandmother alleges that when she became aware of this and brought this to the attention of Ursuline's administrators, again, no appropriate action taken, and she had to take that child out of school. And then finally, the last suit that was just filed in state court, the first three are in federal court and involve federal claims, including Title IX. The last suit was brought in state court recently and involves a girl who was subjected to a physical attack by another girl and became aware that it was going to happen. And when her mother brought this to the attention of the assistant principal, Margaret Daymore, it is alleged in the suit, that administrator failed to prevent the attack. It was preventable, and that the girl, again, experienced a serious concussion, was vomiting in the principal's office, no medical attention administered or given. And so each suit collectively is providing a pretty serious set of allegations about malfeasance, nonfeasance, and neglect and recklessness by the administration.
I want to stick with the lawsuits that are involving the football team at this moment. And I want to remind our audience that we are talking about lawsuits that have been filed against Ursuline High School. We're talking specifically about it in the context of hazing today. One of those lawsuits alleges hazing within the football team. Two of the additional lawsuits allege improper behavior from members of the football team. And then a fourth lawsuit that Subodh just mentioned alleges a pre-planned attack that the school failed to stop from happening, which was not related to members of the football team. So if you want to give us a call, our number is 866-578-0903. You can also email us at soi@ideastream.org. And Zach, keeping in the conversation about what happens on a school athletics team, in your opinion, what's the role of a high school coach in managing things that student athletes do outside of practice and game time?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough line, and being in education, it's tough for when the school is legally allowed to get involved and when it needs to be brought to the police attention. It needs to be a police matter versus a school matter. But I mean, anytime you're outside of practice, you just hope that your kids, I mean, you preach them about how you have to act in school, how you have to act in the public, outside of school, all those things. And I mean, you can't be with the kids 24/7. So it's impossible for you to monitor everything that they're doing. And I mean, you just got to do the best you can with teaching them right and wrong, and in hopes when you're not watching them, they're doing the right things.
Zach, is it typically clear when an athlete signs up to be a part of an athletics program in high school? I know you've been involved in multiple different athletics programs throughout different high schools here in Northeast Ohio. Is it typically made clear to a student that your activity outside of practice, outside of the field, will have a bearing on your ability to participate in sports?
Yeah, I mean, there's always a fine line as to what you can punish a kid, because at the end of the day, as a coach, if you're going to punish a kid for something that hasn't been proven or something like that you're opening yourself up to a lawsuit as well for not having factual evidence to support your decision. As a coach, that in a sport where you can cut, like if you know that there's been issues with a certain kid, you can remove the kid from the team. But like a no cut sport like football or track or things like that, it's tough to just say, well, you're not going to be able to play because you did this. But you just have to gather the evidence and trust the process of finding out all the facts and go from there, and use your tools as school administrators and athletic directors to help support your decisions.
We'll bring in our final guest now. We have Doug Ute joining us. He's the executive director of the Ohio High School Athletics Association. Doug, thank you very much for calling in today.
Yeah, good morning.
Doug, I'd like to ask you, it seems there really hasn't been a comprehensive survey about hazing in high school in quite some time. I did find a survey that had some results from 2000, and that study found an estimated 1.5 million high school students experience hazing each year. I want to put that in a little bit of context here. The National Center for Education Statistics reports that there are about 15.5 million high school students enrolled in grades 9 through 12 in public and private schools today. So That would be about 10% of all students being hazed if those numbers hold true. Can you tell us how big of a problem hazing is for high school athletics at this point based on what you're seeing?
No, I'm really not. That's not what we do at the OHSAA. Certainly have a lot of contact with our membership, but ours are generally, our policies are to the events, not necessarily things that happen away from our events and that you're referring to. But we do have, a lot of contact with our schools and try to provide programming. One of the things that we've done in conjunction with Life Sports at Ohio State University is provide training for coaches that deal with mental wellness. That would certainly go down that road of hazing and those behavior and those type of things of our student athletes and that. But I wouldn't have the knowledge of what percent of student athletes are being hazed.
Okay, thank you for sharing that context with us. We appreciate it. Zach, as a head football coach, you see your athletes all the time and student athletes from the schools that you're playing. So how would you describe the culture in Northeast Ohio's high school football programs from your perspective? We may have lost Zach momentarily, so we'll try and make sure that we get Zach back online. And Sabot, I'll ask you now, the lawsuits filed against the students allegedly involved and their parents, those are two groups of defendants in these lawsuits, also Ursuline High School and its staff and coaches. What makes
the diocese.
And the diocese, yes. What makes the school and the diocese responsible in these cases?
Well, ultimately, what the suits are alleging is that there's knowledge on the part of Ursuline High School, and then also knowledge by the diocese and Ursuline about potentially problematic behavior by the coaches preceding these incidents that would have made them a risk to hire and to retain, and there's also an ongoing responsibility to properly train them. And supervise them. So that's what would ultimately foist responsibility upon the high school. Plus, there's an obligation by administrators to report when there's a serious physical harm or risk to a child. So all of those things ultimately would make a high school and its administrators responsible. Obviously, if administrators or coaches truly aren't aware of something and aren't even in a position to be aware of something, then they would not be liable under the circumstances. But what this suit is alleging is a great deal of detail of knowledge and awareness, and some of that is coming from the players themselves. We have cooperation from some of the players, some of the defendant players, non-defendant players, saying coaches were fully aware of this stuff happening on the 2025 trip and earlier as part of the culture of the program.
Jeff, I'll ask you to share a response to that as well from a victim's advocate perspective. When does it become the school's responsibility to step in to prevent something if they can, or address harassment or physical or mental assault?
Yes, I think that's the point, that the school has to be involved monitoring these kinds of things all along so they nip it in the bud. It's not a lack of rules or laws. Those are there. And we know that particularly young boys are going to engage in behavior without good leadership that is potentially very dangerous. What we see again in the college level, these fraternities cannot govern themselves. I mean, my opinion is we shouldn't even have fraternities in college because there's no way to regulate that when these boys get together. The same kind of thing is going to happen in high school. We know that's going to happen. We have to expect it, anticipate it, and monitor it. And so I think it is the duty of the administration, the coaches, not to wait until they see, there's all these videos being shared around the school, or there's a lawsuit filed. They need to be involved sooner. And if they're not, as what's alleged in this complaint, there has to be accountability. Otherwise, there won't be changes. The other thing I want to mention is that, years ago, without social media, when someone was harassed or bullied, it was sort of limited in terms of the local school. Now with social media, these videos get posted and shared literally around the world. And the humiliation and the embarrassment and the suffering for the victim is so much more exaggerated and devastating that it's really, really critical we stop this before it even happens.
Sabot, I want to ask you about a point that came up when Zach was speaking earlier about making sure that you are acting on a factual basis. So you're a civil rights attorney. What kind of legal obligations does the school have to protect the rights of the accused in this case, while also making sure that they're protecting the rights of victims?
Well, first and foremost, under Title IX, and Title IX is the federal law that prohibits sex discrimination, including sexual harassment, in schools that accept federal financial assistance. And Ursuline accepted federal financial assistance, and that's why they're subject to Title IX. The school has an obligation to investigate allegations. I mean, that's just a threshold obligation. And so, as part of that investigative responsibility, they need to afford students due process. They need to notify them of what's being alleged, give them an opportunity to be heard, give the victims due process as well, the alleged victims, and give them the opportunity to be heard, and then draw a conclusion based upon what's there. So built into the process in Title IX is due process, is fairness, notice, and opportunity to respond. But ultimately, if the school concludes, and in this case you have sworn affidavits from players that have been submitted with the amended complaint, it's in the court record that they are saying, number one, this stuff happened. Number two, I told the administrator this happened. I confessed, and that there were no real consequences to me. They were placed on suspension for a brief period, supposedly pending an investigation, but there was no actual discipline meted out, and then they were returned to the field. That's what they're all alleging consistently. So the school's pious complaints publicly that, oh, we did everything we were supposed to do, at least according to these players, is simply not accurate. So that's the fairness that is required, is to make sure that you're taking it seriously, that you're fully investigating, that you're giving every side an opportunity to be heard. And if you draw conclusions that there's a problem, and certainly people are confessing to you, you have an obligation to thoroughly report those details to law enforcement and to child services, and to hold the offenders accountable internally within the system.
Mm-hmm. I think we have Zach back, the head coach for the football program at Minerva High School. Zach, I wanted to ask you, in your role as a head coach for Minerva, and also seeing your athletes, seeing the athletes that you compete against, can you describe the culture in Northeast Ohio's high school football program from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I mean, the places that I've been at, I feel like in the football programs, we've done a good job of securing a good environment. And there are always going to be issues within programs. There's going to be things that happen that are out of your control, and you have to address them once you get there. And I feel that football is important in Northeast Ohio, obviously. Mm-hmm. But I think that the vast majority of the coaches take these things seriously and want to have a healthy and supportive environment for all their athletes. I don't think it's something that goes rampant throughout Northeast Ohio. I think coaches try to get ahead of things and try to do the things that they're supposed to do. And when something happens, they are making an attempt to contact the appropriate people. Like I said earlier, like you got to lean on your administration and your athletic director and those people to run the investigations and see what the outcome is. And like they talked about the Title IX, I mean, obviously there's a lot of those things. If there's anything sexual going on, that will go through the Title IX committee through your school, and they will go through their investigation as well.
Now, Doug, we saw that Ursuline High School ended its football season this year after just 2 games, and this was a change that was made in light of the allegations involving players and coaches. That was a voluntary choice that the high school made. So I would like to ask you, what kind of things rise to the level of ending an athletic season early from the Ohio High School Athletics Association perspective?
Well, certainly this case, this doesn't happen often, thank goodness, and it's very rare in our association. But the other things would be limited, pretty much to, hey, we just don't have enough. Usually that's in basketball, state girls basketball. We only had 8 girls, 1 broke their leg, 2 quit, and now we're down, so we're going to end our season. And so it's very rare that happens, but those are some situations that would cause a team to cancel their season.
We have been talking about lawsuits here. So I do need to remind our audience that lawsuits are allegations. There has been no ruling in this case. There has been one settlement, but there has been no definitive court ruling in this case. Zach, I want to ask you, as a football coach, can you talk to us about the harm that might come from being forced to sit out a year of high school football for players who are determined to not have been responsible for code of conduct violations?
Yeah, I mean it's a terrible situation for everybody involved in that program, and it does have an effect on kids and going to college and going on to the next level and things like that. Kids are missing an opportunity to get themselves seen, but yeah, I mean it's just a terrible situation all around. But I mean they made the best decision that they could, and you never want to see kids not playing in games, but I mean that's I haven't been in that situation to need to make that call. I mean, I know during COVID there was a lot of people that were canceling games and things because of COVID, which was terrible back then. I mean, but yeah, I mean, in this situation, you never want to see kids having to sit out, but I mean, they made the best decision they had to, given the situation.
There were some transfers that took place related to this cancellation of this football season. So, Doug, I know the Ohio High School Athletics Association had ruled students who were not involved in the alleged incidents had to sit out games before being able to play elsewhere if they transferred. That has had mixed results when challenged in court. But beyond the eligibility issues for transferring students, is the Ohio High School Athletic Association looking into allegations against Ursuline High School student athletes in any way?
No, we are not looking. That is not under our purview, so to speak, and we'll let the school conduct their investigation and let the courts determine the legal aspects of that. But we do have what you had referred to as when they cancel their season, we have a regulation that you can't play for two different high schools in one season. And that's what has caused us as you mentioned, the legal aspects of this and that, because they do have some students who wanted to do that transfer after their second game that is not permitted in our regulations.
Okay. Does the association get involved in any way in some of the education that we were talking about earlier, like anti-hazing campaigns or anything to try to be proactive or preventative of this, Doug?
Yeah, we do stuff with sportsmanship, and as I mentioned before, the mental wellness of our kids we've become very involved in with Life Sports at Ohio State, and have had that out to our schools on, the mental wellness of our student athletes for our coaches, because that's becoming not just with coaches. My experience, this is year 42 for me as an educator, and I spent 37 of them in the school, 20 as a superintendent, and so. Just not just related to athletics, but to, the life at 7:30 to 3 and training your teachers and stuff on the mental wellness of your kids and understanding your kids a little bit better and some triggers to things that cause some of those things type of things that you're talking about. And so we've become very involved in that aspect.
Jeff, as we wrap this conversation up, in your expertise as a victim's advocate, is there any special considerations that need to be made when you're dealing with a minor reporting some type of physical or mental assault coming from another minor?
Well, it doesn't make a difference for the victim, the age of the perpetrator. It's important that there's a safe place for them to report it, and then the adults respond immediately. And not to say that you obviously have to protect the accused. And when they're a minor, you need to do it appropriate for the minor. But you have to do something. You have to investigate. What's alleged in this complaint is that there was a lot of evidence indicating that this was a real thing and that kids were being harmed. And so it's just, again, I'll go back. It's up to the adults who are running this school. They know the rules, and they have to enforce them. And it's simply a matter of common sense. Safety comes first. Protect the children.
Sabot, any final thoughts you'd like to share?
I do want to note this, that since September 2nd, 2025, when the first Ursuline lawsuit was filed alleging the hazing. It has been incredibly comforting for the alleged victims across now all 4 of these suits that other alleged victims and witnesses have come forward to offer information. And so we would encourage them to continue to do so. They can visit our website at chandralaw.com and use the contact form. And some people have said, look, I was a victim also, but I don't want to pursue a legal action. I just want to be helpful. And others have said, listen, I would now like to stand up for myself, seeing that others have come forward. It takes an enormous amount of courage to do that. All of the victims have really appreciated having that support. It has been meaningful, and so we would welcome additional assistance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank our guests for participating in this conversation today. Doug Ute, Executive Director of the Ohio High School Athletic Association, thanks for calling in. And Minerva High School head football coach Zach Slates, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me on.
Also on the phone, Jeff Herman, attorney and victims advocate with Herman Law. Thank you very much for being with us.
My pleasure.
And Subodh Chandra, the attorney who has filed these 4 lawsuits against Ursuline High School. We appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thanks for considering this incredibly important issue.
We'll take a break now, and when we're back, we have a new installment of our Get to NEO a Leader series. Today, we'll meet the incoming Cleveland City Council member for Ward 12. This is The Sound of Ideas. I'm Stephanie Haney. We'll be right back. You're with The Sound of Ideas from IdeaStream Public Media. I'm Stephanie Haney. Thank you for staying with us. Now we have our latest installment of our series, Get to NEO a Leader, where we introduce all of you, our audience members in the 22 counties of Northeast Ohio that we reach, to your officials from across the listening area. Today we'll meet Tanmay Shah, who was just elected as the Cleveland City Council member for Ward 12. At 29, he'll become the youngest member of council when he takes office in the new year, and the only newcomer this election to unseat an incumbent. Running as a Democratic Socialist, Shah defeated Councilmember Danny Kelly by a razor-thin margin of 9 votes. We've got the councilmember-elect with us today to talk about his win and his hopes on what he will bring to City Hall. Tanmay, thanks for being here.
Of course, thank you for having me.
Now, if you would like to join the conversation, you can do that by giving us a call at 866-578-0903. You can also email us at soi@ideastream.org, or you can send us a message on Instagram at The Sound of Ideas. Tanmay, you ran this race as a Democratic Socialist, which is something that we're hearing a lot. It seems to be having a moment nationally. So can you describe those principles to us and how you expect to apply those in office?
Yeah, for me, I think we want to contextualize it for the local context. It's important to understand that I think Clevelanders really inherently understand what it means to be left behind by the capitalist system that we have. We've seen jobs leaving our city for decades now. We've seen a disinvestment in our neighborhoods that has instead prioritized the ultra wealthy instead of our working class neighborhoods. And for us, when we were running this campaign, we were thinking through, okay, what are some solutions that we can put forth? It really kept coming back to, are we able to reverse this cycle of disinvestment in our neighborhoods and instead make sure that our neighborhoods are the ones, because we believe fundamentally that it is working class people that generate the wealth of our economy, and that's how we have a path forward to growing our city again. And from the jump, we wanted to make sure we added a focus on housing and groceries because we saw there was such an absence of this, and we've seen the market fail once again to, actually provide this for working class people.
You mentioned affordable housing and affordable groceries and also reliable city services. Can you give us any kind of an idea how you expect to come up with the funds in order to make those things happen?
Yeah, I think the challenge is actually getting people to understand how they're being provided for us right now. There's a lot of misconceptions, right? Let's take, for example, housing. People already don't realize that we are already providing subsidies for developers to come in and attract housing, development, whatever it may be. And right now that has skewed towards luxury developments. And instead of doing that, we can say, hey, look, we actually want to have truly affordable housing. Let's actually make sure that's a part of this when we discuss, what the developers might be wanting to come in for. And that's where I think we can definitely bring in a lot of money. But I think overall, if we take a step back, the understanding of, where our housing market develops is going to be something we have to kind of combine with what City Hall is already doing. So, it's really difficult, and I think we saw this during Rebecca Maurer's term in the last 4 years, Mayor Bibb's term, where we've seen as City Hall starts to modernize, we are going to have to start understanding what are the different ways we can do things. We can't expect different results if we keep doing the same things.
Now, a lot of people view capitalism as something that's central to the American dream, the idea that if you work hard, you can succeed. It's as simple as that. What do you think about that mindset?
I, as an immigrant who came here from India, it is something that I believe definitely if you work hard, you should succeed. But that is not the truth that most people actually live. If you're telling me, let's take, for example, right now, the Starbucks workers that are on strike, that are working hard, they are not getting the things they deserve, even though they are the ones that are producing the labor. Brian Nichols, the CEO, is earning $95 million a year. Are you telling me that he works 95 million times harder than the average worker? I just fundamentally disagree that these are the ways that our system is actually working right now. And we've seen this time and time again where workers are being left behind and they're not getting a fair share of the pie that they're actually helping create.
So what was it that hit that light bulb for you the moment where you decided, I'm going to run for city council in Cleveland?
It's a great question. I know, I don't know if there was one single moment. It was rather a buildup of time. I've went to law school at Case here, and I was observing city politics. I was seeing, for example, what sticks in my mind oftentimes is the Q deal, when we gave Dan Gilbert a lot of money to renovate his stadium, and that was out of our public money once again. And my question at that time, frustration was, why are we subsidizing these billionaires and these sports teams that are earning profits, but we're not seeing those investments coming back to our city? That was definitely one moment. And then in the past year or two, I've been involved, in our local community organizing, been involved with our local Cleveland Palestine advocacy community, where we were asking City Hall for a simple ceasefire in Gaza to recognize the genocide that was going on. And this was something that we weren't able to get for over 15 weeks. And it was a simple paper statement that wouldn't have cost the city a dime. And we kept coming back and saying, look, why is this such a hard thing to do? And it really started from that, where we need local accountability. We can't expect our federal officials, our state officials to do the right thing if we are not getting that here locally. So it really started refocusing my energies on the local scene. We saw at the county level as well. We've been successful in getting money divested out of Israel, and we want to keep that up. But it's really going to be, how can we actually have accountability of our elected officials? And I just saw a lack of voices that sounded like the things that we wanted, and that's what spurred me to run.
Now, you were supported in your election by progressive groups, including A Better Cleveland for All and the Ohio Working Families Party. We got an email in from Chris in Ohio City, and Chris asks, what role did preventing a pre-primary endorsement by the Cuyahoga County Democratic Party play in your eventual electoral win? And Chris also adds, congratulations on it.
Thank you, Chris. Great question. I think it was huge. Not having a sample ballot in our race was definitely key, and that was something we worked for. We wanted to make the case to the voters, and I think we were successful in that we should have an open primary where the party shouldn't put its thumb on the scale and tell the voters, when you have two Democrats, two campaigns that are actually motivated to talk to voters, and we were successful in that. We actually knocked over 10,000 doors. We had over 150 volunteers, not a single dime that went for paid canvassing, and we believe that is really what made the difference. But that was the pitch for us coming in from the jump, and the executive committee for the Democratic Party believed in this, and they went with the non-endorsement that we were really excited for.
Now, there's a new district map that the Cleveland City Council will be operating under. So Ward 12 runs from West Side's Edgewater neighborhood to West Boulevard. Can you tell us about any hyper-local projects that you would like to take on in the area?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a couple, things that are bubbling right now. I'm really excited, hopefully, to work on the Variety Theater project that has been just kind of laid by for quite some time. It's anchor historic theater that really could revitalize the neighborhood and be the anchor for what many hope for is going to be the Little Arabia, another cultural district, similar to Little Italy that we absolutely can have. And then in the north right now, we are also, I want to recognize there's school closings right now. This is the top of a lot of folks' minds, and there are a couple of schools that are in our district that are slated to be closed. So we want to work with local community organizations and partners to make sure that those district buildings get put into useful things that the community actually wants. And that's been one of the focuses as well right now.
Thank you for bringing that up. We will be having a conversation about the consolidation with the Cleveland Metropolitan School District later in this week. So stay around for that. Stay tuned for that. That'll be Thursday of this week. I want to remind our audience that we are sharing a new installment of our Get to NEO a Leader series with you. We have Tanmay Shah, who will be serving Cleveland City Council in Ward 12 when he takes office in the new year. And if you'd like to call in with a question, that number is 866-578-0903, and you can email us at soi@ideastream.org. Now, you won the election by just 9 votes.
Yes.
Is there anything you would like to share about voting and participating in local government in general?
You know, it's something we stressed the whole time was that voting is absolutely important. And I think, you know, it's probably beyond it's not necessary to talk about just how important it is. As we see in this race, 9 votes. That was the difference one canvasser made when they were door knocking and talking to 9 people. Every vote matters. But what our message through the campaign was that voting shouldn't be the start and end of your advocacy or your involvement in your community. This voting is the bare minimum. So if you're not involved on your local neighborhood block, if you're not involved in a club, something that actually puts your community forth and brings it together, then voting can only get us so far. We've seen this time and time again. And I mean, just the fact that I was the only person to beat an incumbent speaks to this, where we need more energy going into our city. And that's only going to happen when we come together.
This is something that people talk about a lot. Getting people to come to Cleveland, newcomers coming to Cleveland, young professionals, families looking to buy homes, people choosing where to build their lives. Is that something that's a focus for you, bringing new people in? And how does that compare to your focus on building and improving for the people who are already here and keeping them here?
That's a great question. You know, we actually believe they're fundamentally tied. When people see that a group of people are happy, they're, you know, actually thriving in their neighborhoods, that is what is going to attract new people there. It is not going to be, you know, glitzy downtown development necessarily. It's actually going to be when working class people have good schools and they have good jobs and good housing. And that's been our focus from the start, is making sure, look, why don't we actually improve the lives of the people that are already living here in Cleveland, so that the others around the county, around the state can actually see, look, this is something that's actually happening and we can invest here. And when we actually focus on those things, we believe that our city will grow. And it's something that we absolutely have a focus on. You know, talking about so many of our problems in Cleveland go back to this fundamental issue of lack of people that we have here, unfortunately. We went from 1 million to, you know, a third of that. But unfortunately, so much of our infrastructure and facilities still reflect when we had 1 million people. And that's why we were going through the school closings right now, is because all these facilities, we have too many of them. But if we actually want to grow, we're going to have to start bringing people back here. And we believe that's going to be through investments in our neighborhoods, not just, you know, giving more projects to the ultra wealthy and the billionaires.
We have a call now from Kit in Alliance. Kit, welcome to the Sound of Ideas. Go ahead.
Hi. I have a question about what you think, from your experience, about the rest of Ohio's local, like, electoral landscape. Do you think people like you could be elected in other areas around Ohio?
Absolutely. When we talk about people like me, I believe it's community organizers that are rooted in their neighborhoods and understand what their neighbors actually want and need. I absolutely believe other people can get elected. It's just a matter of actually going out and building those things.
Thank you for the question, Kit. We appreciate it. As we start to wrap things up here, I'd like for you to talk about your time at Legal Aid and how that shapes what you've chosen to do with public service.
Yeah, Legal Aid was one of my first jobs coming out of law school, and it was I worked with so many wonderful people and amazing advocates there that were pushing for their clients to get the best outcomes, and I learned so much there from my mentors. We also unionized while I was there. It was something that I'm really proud of. We formed a union of almost 100 people, and that was something that was just amazing to be a part of. But a lot of my focus on housing actually came from there. I was a housing attorney there, and during that process, my assigned courts, I was seeing tenants who were unable to afford $600, $700, $800 in rent. And every time I'm going home after hearings or going to work, all I see being built around town are luxury developments. And the question kept coming back to me there is, like, who's actually going to live in these places? And I know it's not my clients, the people who are actually working and building this city. Unfortunately, we're catering too much for these out-of-state developers. And, I fundamentally came back, that question kept coming back to me, is that who are we building our city for? And my time at Legal Aid was just so crucial in helping me understand that and helping me realize that at the local level, we can do so many more things with our policies when we are willing to believe that something different is possible and that we don't resign ourselves to just the fact that, this is what the city looks like. But I refuse to believe and take that answer, and that's why I'm here.
Final question. In under a minute, tell us what's your favorite part of living in Cleveland?
Oh, that's a great question. I think it has to be food. I'm very food motivated. So everything, from, of course, I'm a little biased towards Indian food, but everything from Indian food to some of the best pizzas we have. I mean, from Sense to Il Rione. Unfortunately, City Slice just closed in my ward, but there is an East Side City Slice, so please check that out. But I think food would have to be it from all of our immigrant communities, from the Nepali to the Afghani communities that have brought to our city. It's a city that's built and defined by immigrants, and I'm really excited for that future.
Do not sleep on the food scene in Cleveland, people. It is very diverse
That's
and
right.
very tasty.
Absolutely.
Tanmay Shah, the council member-elect for the City of Cleveland, Ward 12, thank you for sharing your time with us today.
Thank you so much for your time as well, and thank you for the listeners.
We appreciate it. To get the last word on today's topics, you can send an email to soi@ideastream.org. You can find us on Instagram as well. We're at The Sound of Ideas. Tomorrow on the show, we'll talk to doctors and patients about perimenopause and menopause, treatment options that have recently been deemed safe by the government, and the fear and misinformation and general lack of information that still surrounds this stage of life for women. If you missed any part of today's show, you can listen to the Sound of Ideas podcast wherever you get your podcasts, or you can watch the show on the IdeaStream Public Media YouTube page. You can also hear a rebroadcast tonight at 9 on 89.7 WKSU. I'm Stephanie Haney. Thank you for keeping the conversation going. We'll see you back here tomorrow on the Sound of Ideas.